Alrighty, welcome back to Shut Up and Ball. I am Aaron, and as per usual, I am joined by Mr. John Harris. How are you this fine day, Mr. John?
I'm doing good. Eventful week of football. A lot of crazy games, a lot of backup quarterbacks, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, doing pretty good.
Good. All right. Yeah. So, like John mentioned, we'll get right into it, into the Week 8, our Week 8 reactions. So starting off with my Green Bay Packers. They beat the Arizona Cardinals 24-21 with no receivers really. Well, no notable receivers. Only one really, Randall Cobb. Kind of a, I don't say a wacky game, but just real defensive. Maybe it's just it was a sloppy game. Like, it just wasn't a sexy game. He thought it'd be more high scoring, especially from Arizona. So I'm not sure if that's credit to my Packers defense, really. Missing a few guys. Also, though, DeAndre was important to note. DeAndre Hopkins in and out of this game. I think he was dealing with a hamstring issue, seemed to be the main cause. But I don't mean to sound cliche, but kind of came down just to turnovers. It's kind of what it's been the story of Green Bay really for like the whole year. Green Bay's not going to turn the ball over. We're going to just play smart defense on offense and just wait for you to make a mistake. And that's what Arizona really did. They made, Kyler Murray had two interceptions. I believe, I forget the first one. It was off a deflection, right? I forget. But
Yeah, I
obviously,
believe so.
everyone remembers the second one. Him and AJ Green not on the same page. I think AJ Green said after the game, I believe I remember seeing, he said he thought it was a run. It was a run call. That's why he never turned around at all. And it just so happened to land in the hands of Rasul Douglas, who ironically was on Arizona's practice squad earlier this year. And yeah, he kind of iced the game from there. But not a lot to say analytically. Once again, I can't be too harsh on the Cardinals missing some key pieces. I would like to see maybe get the run game more involved. Chase Edmonds and James Conner, when they did give him the ball, seemed to, I think be pretty productive. I mean, Conner got into the end zone basically untouched the two times. But yeah, just somehow the Packers pull it out. But yeah, John, what are your thoughts in regards to the Thursday nighter?
I thought it was a good game. It was definitely not as offensively focused as a lot of people expected. One thing I do think is the Packers defense needs a little more respect than people have typically given them, because this was a game where it easily could have gotten out of hand. Obviously, it helps that DeAndre Hopkins did miss some, parts of this game, and there was just some miscues. But overall, I think they did a really good job holding this Cardinals offense from doing what they normally do, which is put up over 30 points a game. Um, on the other side, I mean, like you said, the Packers, they didn't, make any errors, didn't make any mistakes. They played safe when they needed to. They allowed their defense to work with good field position and trusted them and all that kind of stuff. And it paid off in the end, and the Packers came out with a win. It wasn't a pretty game by either team by any means, but that's one that you want to win right there. And I think it was an impressive one for Matt LaFleur and his squad to come out and do, especially to overcome all the injuries. No David Bakhtiari, the top three receivers are all out. Missing Jair Alexander and other pieces on that defense. Just a lot of reasons for the Packers to lose, and they still came out and won. So good win for the Packers. For the Cardinals, they were going to lose eventually. So, finally got it off your back.
Yeah, and yeah, so maybe going forward now they have that pressure will be off them. Also, Cardinals also lost J.J. Watt the day before for the season, so they had their own injury issues, like I mentioned too with D Hop. So fortunate for them. Hopefully both sides get healthy, and and hopefully they meet again in the playoffs, like Rogers mentioned to Kyler after the game. So now going to the Sunday games, aka Halloween games. First one, the Carolina Panthers beat the Atlanta Falcons 19-13. Surprisingly ish, a defensive game from both sides. Kyle Pitts didn't get to do much. I mean, from my end, which before I throw it to John, I mean, I don't have much to say other than just see Carolina's defense keeping them in games. Sam Darnold not making, maybe cleaning his game up, not making the critical errors that have killed him in past weeks. But still, I think Sam and Joe Brady kind of need to get. I don't know. Once again, I'm not sure this is McCaffrey being gone, but regardless, need to get more creative because it seems like teams have an idea of where they want to go with the ball and some of their plays and concepts. So we'll see if they can do that. But regardless, John's my guy. Matt Rule in the game, get another win, kind of get back on track. So John, what are your thoughts in regards to what occurred here?
I mean, you want to talk about not pretty games. This was definitely one of them. Stefan Gilmore, he came back. He got an interception late to seal the game on Matt Ryan. So that was a good one. But neither passing attack really blew anybody away. Matt Ryan threw for 146 yards. Sam Darnold threw for 129. So there just wasn't really a whole lot of offense that was happening. Now, the Panthers did rush for 200 yards, but at the same time, they ran it 47 times. So, there's just a lot of running going on for the Panthers. And then for the Falcons, there just wasn't a whole lot of offense, to be perfectly honest. It does suck for them that Calvin Ridley is, stepping away from the team for personal reasons. Don't know exactly, what's related to that. So I would just say for anyone, because I already know some people, especially one of my friends, Falcons fan, are already judging Calvin Ridley for that decision. I would just say maybe let's withhold judgment before we know the full details, because you never know exactly what's going on there. But sucks for the Falcons that's happening. They're not really going to be a competitive team this year, regardless if he was there. So I don't know how big of a difference he would have made. Like maybe, at the end of this game, he could come up big on that drive and allow Matt Ryan to not try and force feed Kyle Pitts is really the only reliable option left. But once again, the Falcons are just not going to be an amazing team this year. So good win for the Panthers, but overall, I wouldn't say it was too impressive. Not a lot to hang your hat on because, they couldn't get much going through the air and they only put up 19 points. So, I mean, good for their defense, but once again, Calvin really wasn't there. Falcons aren't amazing. So it is what it is.
Yeah, so we'll see if they can clean that up. But yeah, and also in regards to Calvin Ridley, hopefully, obviously, once again, like John mentioned, we don't know what's going on. So hopefully, however long it takes, he can figure, get things right on his end, and hopefully everything's okay, goes okay for him. So, alrighty, now going to another game that was a little bit of an ugly score / game just to watch. Buffalo Bills edge out the Miami Dolphins 26-11. Wasn't really until the fourth quarter where all the scoring kind of occurred. 16 by the Bills, 8 by the Dolphins. So most of the points occurred in the fourth quarter. I'm going to throw it to John first here. What were your thoughts in regards to this divisional matchup between the Bills and Dolphins?
This did not go as I expected it to. I mean, I figured the Bills would win, and they won. I want to say easily, but it felt like for a lot of the game, it was like relatively close. And then towards the end is really when Buffalo sort of made their move. But I don't know. It just, for a long time, it was a tough defensive battle. I mean, they went into halftime tied at 3-3. Like it just, there wasn't much offense happening. So good on Miami for, scrapping and making this one closer than it should have been because – based on what happened in the end of this game, especially in the fourth quarter, if that had also happened the rest of the game, this easily would have got out in hand. But it went about as expected. The Buffalo defense, they're playing on another level right now. I mean, Tua, he didn't have a terrible game, but 200 yards on 39 pass attempts, no touchdowns, interception, only completed about 50% of his passes. There's only so much you can do against that Buffalo defense, especially, when you're the Dolphins and you're missing, some of your weapons. And then Buffalo also just knew what Tua and that offense wanted to do. A lot of the stuff was underneath. A lot of the stuff was really short. Jalen Waddle had 12 targets, was only able to catch 4 of them because so many of them were just underneath, and Buffalo knew that's what he wanted to do. And they knew that their pass rush would get there in time if they tried to do anything over the top. So, yeah, like I said, it didn't go fully as I expected it to, but the end result was, pretty much what people thought, which is a big Buffalo win.
Yeah. I mean, Miami was the better team here. I think for most of the day, Miami, especially on defense, really were able to hold Josh Allen and the Bills. Like John mentioned, only 3 points at half, not what you would expect. I mean, this is a Buffalo team that's had a lot of success on offense, but I think a few of their holes are showing. I mean, not a lot of difference making in the run game. I know they try to stay patient with it, but Devin Singletary nor Zach Moss were really able to get going. And then I mean, I know Cole Beasley had a good game, but they need a second perimeter receiver. Gabriel Davis hasn't been able to step up from last year. Emmanuel Sanders, who was recently signed, had a few games, but he's had also some games like this where he hasn't done anything. And I know I don't believe they had Dawson Knox for this game, so maybe that hurts because I know he's had he's been a bright spot this season. But regardless, now the trade deadline's over, they didn't really add anyone. So hopefully, one of those guys pops up. Either it would be Sanders or Dawson Knox. But it's also tough. Like it's a divisional game. These teams have seen each other. Dayball and Brian Flores, they've had history with working with each other and being on similar teams. So the last few games went to Dayball's side. Bills scoring a lot. This game, I think we can credit Matt Flores and his defense. They technically won the battle. They didn't win the actual game, but they did their job for the most part. And in regards to the Dolphins offense, this was a concern. At least of mine was Tua just not physically elite to maybe make the one or two game breaking plays. Get out of the pocket, make a great throw or something of the sort downfield. This was a concern, and we're kind of seeing it now. If the offense doesn't do it itself, Tua really can't add on to helping the offense out by bailing the offensive coordinator out or something of that sort, like a Josh Allen can. Yeah, and now we know we don't get Deshaun Watson, so we're going to see Tua for the rest of the season, and we'll see if, well, like I said, I think we've seen the best of Tua already, just personally, but we'll see. But I just don't see what more he can add to his game, just because he's already limited physically, at least compared to a Josh Allen. But he's still a good quarterback. I want to notate that. I don't think he's going to be a franchise-changing guy. So those are my thoughts there. Do you have anything else before we can move on?
No, I will say I don't know what Miami's doing in regards to like the Tua Deshaun Watson stuff. Like I feel like you just kind of need to make a decision. It felt like they'd just been teetering on the edge of it the whole season. But it's like if you were going to do it, why are you waiting until next season? Realistically, if this Deshaun Watson thing has gone this far and there have been 0 criminal charges like filed, I'm not assuming Deshaun Watson is going to be serving any prison time at this point. And that's removing like the morality of everything out of this, because it's been made clear in the media that the Dolphins owner has green lighted a potential Deshaun Watson trade. So this isn't like, some owners, they might be like, well, we don't want a guy like Deshaun Watson on our team. Clearly that's not the case in Miami. And so at that point, the holdup would be the price tag. And then, maybe if he gets suspended by the NFL, and if there was going to be any criminal stuff. Like I said, though, at this point, if after this long there's been nothing criminal filed, I'm imagining that they're not still investigating this, right? Like they've probably done their due diligence and they're not going to file anything. That doesn't mean there's not going to be anything civil-wise that could potentially lead to a suspension or something like that. But, I mean, if Deshaun Watson was going to be suspended for a year, wouldn't the price tag still be worth it? Because he's going to get like 4 years or something left on his contract still, and he's a top 5 quarterback when healthy. So I don't know. I'm just a little confused why Miami is sort of teetered on the edge of this whole thing, and it's just become a huge distraction, I think, for Tua, for Miami, just for everybody involved, and it's just becoming a train wreck because they're really bad now.
Yeah, just a quick note. Mike Florio has been pretty good about reporting on this on Pro Football Talk, and I was listening today, and he mentioned that was one of the big holdups on the Deshaun Watson trade is the NFL going to suspend him, and it's already a tough cookie because the NFL's not, because right now apparently the way Houston has it, because he's obviously not playing for Houston, but he could, so that's making it easier for Houston in the NFL because they don't have to worry about Deshaun as I think Mike Flores said, Deshaun Watson showing up tomorrow and saying, hey, I want to play, because they still have, he's on the roster, he's healthy, trust me, I have him in our sleeper league. It's kind of annoying that I can't put him on IR because he's not medically out.
Right.
So I think that, because apparently that's Carolina. That's why Carolina got in talks, because they wanted to know. And then because of that, that also adjusts the price tag, because if he's available,
Right.
if he can play this season, then the price can go up. But so he explained it better. He obviously has more know. So I would go listen to that. It's on whatever their YouTube pages. They get paid, so I'm not gonna link them. But anyways, yeah, a lot not going the way the season. The season not going the way Miami wanted. 1-7, and I don't even have the first round pick. We figured out who had it before, but whoever does, there. I think it's the Eagles, right?
Yeah, the Eagles have it.
So the Eagles sitting pretty with that because right now Miami 1-7. So
yeah,
enough of that. Now we're gonna go on to the next one. San Francisco 49ers beat the Chicago Bears 33-22. It for the Bears. I just want to say a quick point. I mean that Deshaun Watson. Why am I blanking on his name? Justin Fields. That run that he had towards the end of the game, great run. Matt Nagy, you'd need to call more plays for that because that wasn't even that was no way scripted, right? Because
by the way, remember in this game, Matt Nagy was not there because of COVID.
Yeah, so I mean, already, and granted, that play I called play for him to run regardless, but even the design didn't work out, but he made magic work. So yeah, but even though they ran more than John said, Niners. They seem to have most control of this game, but I do want to get your thoughts, John. What were your thoughts on Justin Fields' performance and the Niners win here?
Well, first off, the Niners did everything offensively. Jimmy Garoppolo had a really good game. Elijah Mitchell, was doing his thing. Deebo Samuel did his thing, and Brandon Ayuk, like he actually had a game this time. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but he had 7 targets. Yeah, it wasn't Deebo. He didn't have 171 yards. But he had 4 catches. He had 45 yards, 7 targets. Like that's encouraging because of most of the previous weeks he had like 1 target at most. So we'll get into our waiver stuff later. But he's keep an eye on him in fantasy at least because maybe this means he's getting more involved. But that's the Niners. I think most people knew the Niners were going to win this one just because even in the midst of their struggle this season, they're the more talented team between the two, and they have better coaching as well. For the Bears, it wasn't pretty throughout, but I think this was Justin Fields' best game as a pro. He still had an interception, still wasn't perfect when it came to passing, still has some accuracy things he needs to clean up. But I mean, like you said, they're calling run plays for him now, which it was like. I think our biggest criticism of Matt Nagy when Justin Fields first started was you're running the Andy Dalton offense with Justin Fields. Like we're not seeing designed runs. We're not seeing RPOs, some of these basic things that he was really good at in college. Let's implement those things so he can continue to have success and keep the offense, familiar. And I think we finally got to see some of these things in this game. Justin Fields had 10 carries, 100 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown, like we talked about on that one play. So I think that if we can see more of this with Justin Fields, and we already know that their running backs are solid, like when David Montgomery comes back, Khalil Herbert's looked good. Maybe Tariq Cohen comes back this year, and that'd be pretty big because of the playmaker that he is. If they can just use all of that, then sure, they're not going to have an amazing, like crazy season, but you could at least give Justin Fields some confidence because now you're moving the ball, and that could maybe free up stuff in the passing game, allow him to get more, used to the NFL. And overall just help your team potentially win more football games. So I like what I saw out of the Bears, at least offensively. Defensively, they were not very good. They allowed a lot of scoring, and the Niners pretty much were able to get whatever they wanted. So they didn't have Khalil Mack in this one. I don't know if they had any other injuries on the defensive side, so there is that asterisk to it. But overall, good win for the Niners. Encouraging stuff from the Bears.
And just I think last point regards to the Niners, like we forget they're dealing with a lot of injuries. No George Kittle. They finally got like a viable running back in Elijah Mitchell back, and he had a good day as well. Which obviously is we know the running game is very crucial to success for the Kyle Shanahan offense because then he builds the play actions and such off that. Also, Jimmy G just another week healthy, and he wasn't playing in a monsoon that we mentioned last Sunday because. People were pretty harsh on him last week, but there was pouring. And I think I forgot to mention last pod. Well, but that podcast never happened. But he had also mentioned the previous Sunday night when they lost to the Colts, right? Yeah. It was his first time wearing gloves and throwing a football. So because it was raining, so he was just trying to see what he can do to get a grip on the ball. So, I mean he's looked solid. And like I said, I think as long as the Niners want to stay in contention, which with this win they are still in contention, gives them the best chance. And hopefully Trey Lance can keep polishing his game behind him and get better. But yeah, just and last point on Justin Fields too. Also, another reason why you want to help him out as much as you can, which should be common sense to begin with, is you can just something to build on. Just find what he needs to work on in the offseason just so that, because that's the major improvement point. We've seen guys like Josh Allen, many other stars, where the offseason's a big development time for them for to clean up mechanics and such. So, but great win for the Niners, keeps them in the race, and for the Bears, they're kind of slipping out of that playoff picture. But going to a divisional matchup in the AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Cleveland Browns, kind of like the Panthers-Falcons game, kind of a little bit of a more defensive battle, but they beat them 15-10, lost their kicker, I think, in the first quarter of this game, so that didn't help either, but they pull out the win here. So, John, what were your thoughts in regards to this one?
Well, first off, I think the Steelers are the only team in the NFL that has hold on one sec. Pulling it up because I don't want to misquote this. If the stats will ever load for me. Yeah, so they're the only team in the NFL with a winning record that is averaging under 20 points per game on offense. And I think that just shows how good this defense is. We already knew their defense was amazing, but they're making plays, they're getting stops, they're making game-changing plays like TJ Watt. I even think in the Seattle game where he was a force. He was a force in this one too. They have so much talent on that defensive end, and they're keeping the Steelers alive in this season. They're 4-3 because of that defense. Offensively, it's good to see that they're really getting Najee Harris going finally. He's getting better and better, I think, as the season's going on. Deontay Johnson is doing really well as well. Ben Roethlisberger started cleaning it up a little bit more. I think earlier in the year, he was just taking a little too many risks. Wasn't getting the ball out quick enough. Now he's doing it, and I think that helps once again that Najee Harris is also getting things going on the ground, because early in the year he wasn't getting much going. So now that they can do that, helps everybody. So overall, I mean, I was impressed by the Steelers here. I think both of us picked them in the spread because this is exactly what we sort of thought they could be capable of. But I'm more disappointed in the Browns. You know that I was pretty high on them going into this year. I think I had them finishing second in the AFC. And I would go as far as saying that they're potentially the biggest disappointment of the year so far, which I know they're only 4-4. They're not out of this. They definitely have a chance to be a playoff team. But they just really haven't shown me that they're living up to the amount of talent that they have. It's tough, too, because Baker Mayfield is in a crucial year. He still has that fifth year option for next year, but I think this is definitely a prove-it year where it's like, okay, do we want to commit this much money to a guy like Baker Mayfield, especially with how much talent we have that we're going to have to pay eventually? And I can't confidently say the answer is yes as of right now. The Jarvis Landry, Odell stuff still just isn't working. All three of those guys played for the first time together this season, and they couldn't get a touchdown. Like, it's just, I don't know how to feel about the Browns. I don't know who's at fault. I don't know if it's Stefanski can't get them involved. I don't know if it's Odell is, just not as good as he used to be. I don't know if it's Baker, just can't make the throws, can't make the reads. I don't know what it is, but ultimately the Browns, they've been pretty disappointing, and I would say that for a team with as much offensive talent as they have, putting up 10 points in this one, even against a really good Steelers defense, it's not good enough.
I'll start with Pittsburgh. This is the way that they kind of have to win games, that they should be going forward. Rely on the defense, have Najee Harris as your focal point, and then have the play action passes and things like that off of that. Also shout to Pat Freiermuth, who's also a rookie tight end who's had some moments. Very good blocking tight end, and obviously showing off his receiving skills. So he had caught a touchdown this game as well. I wanted him in our Dynasty League, didn't get him. But yeah, in regards to Cleveland, just once again judging, I have no sources. I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves. There was Odell's dad released that video basically roasting Baker and showing the film of where Baker missed Odell, which we mentioned before. And I'm not saying Odell told his dad to do that. But I'm just saying, I don't think he was opposed to it. And granted, Odell's. I think he's been trying to be quiet since the one of the criticisms coming from the Giants was he was too outspoken, things like that. So he's been trying to be the team guy. So, but regardless, I'm surprised Cleveland didn't move him. I guess their asking price is pretty high for him. But regardless of that, I mean, Baker's hurt. Jarvis Landry came back from his injury. This is his first game action since week 1. And yeah, I don't know why. I'm with you. I just don't know why it's not working because the talent's there, and even Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashad Higgins, like they have good guys behind them. They're two good tight ends in Hooper and Njoku. So the pass game should be better, but it's not, unfortunately. And this game they couldn't get the run game going really because once again Pittsburgh's a good defense. So yeah, I got concerns in Cleveland. I mean, their defense did their job, like we mentioned, Miami defense did their job. The offense has to be better, like John mentioned. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But yeah, starting to pump the brakes a little bit on Cleveland as a AFC contender, or maybe even just a playoff team. So we'll see how that goes for them. But going on to the next game here, the Philadelphia Eagles, they beat the Detroit Lions 44-6. Not much to say on this one. I mean, the Eagles did play to their strengths. We're just going to run the ball. And Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard just coming back, I think, from injury. Both got into the end zone a couple of times. Lions they just don't have the horses right now. I mean, it's not great analysis, but that's really all it. Unfortunately for the Lions. So, but John, do you have anything else to add in regards to this one?
Not really. Pretty open and closed case.
Yeah, I mean, Eagles, really good offensive line. They just, said we're not going to turn the ball over and just going to run the ball. So, great job by them and by Jalen Hurts managing the game, not even giving the Lions any life. Yeah. But going on to a more exciting game here, another divisional matchup. The Tennessee Titans needed overtime to beat the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. They beat them 34-31. I think we were watching the end of this game together. But I'll let you go first, John. What were your thoughts in regards to this one?
We're talking about Titans Colts, right?
Titans Colts, yes.
All right, just making sure.
Sorry.
First off, it sucks that Derrick Henry got hurt and that he is now out for the year. Yep. Supposedly, I think they said 6 to 10 weeks, but I'm assuming he's going to be out for the year because of how focal he is to this team, how much work he sustained.
And just a foot injury for a running back, like you don't want to rush that back.
Yeah, but at the same time, and it's unfortunate, but I can't say I'm surprised. He was on pace for a crazy workload that was going to break even his own, records of how many touches and how much he was, taking the ball. And running back's just a physical position. So when you take that many hits, that much damage, even a guy like Derrick Henry, as sustainable as he is, eventually something like this could happen. And so it sucks that it happened. But I think for the Titans, it maybe shows you need to get a little more. You need to get a little less reliant on Derrick Henry. Maybe this is the perfect opportunity to figure that out because now that he's gone, you can see what you have in your other running backs. They tend to never really use anybody else in the backfield, but that's becoming the thing in the NFL is using multiple running backs, getting someone else in there that can get, 7 to 10 touches a game just to make sure the other guy's, good to go and fresh and healthy through the rest of the year. But other than that, I would say for the Titans, great win. A.J. Brown, after bouncing back from his injury and illness and all that stuff, he's dominating. They're going to need him to continue to do that without Derrick Henry. But on the other side, I mean, the Colts put up a great fight. But at the end there, I think Carson Wentz just got a little reckless. And they weren't able to bounce back from it. He knows that. I saw in an interview, I think after the game, he said that he missed Jonathan Taylor in the flat, which probably would have turned to a 15-yard gain.
Yes.
And then once he missed him, the pocket was collapsing. He tried to get rid of it with his left hand, which was kind of crazy. And then the pick six from 2 yards out happened. So I would say Carson knows it. He's clearly not, one of these people who lack self-awareness. It's just clean it up because I would say for the most part this year, he's actually been pretty good and he did really well in this game generally. And so the Colts, I think they're right there. This is a tough one to lose because if they win this, they're right back in this division race. But as of right now, the Titans hold the tiebreaker over them because I believe they won both games. So the Colts, they're going to need to clean it up moving forward against pretty much everybody else if they're going to want to make the playoffs because it's looking like they're most likely a wild card, but we'll have to see because with no Derrick Henry, that opens everything up, even with the tiebreaker.
So, so yeah, I do want to. I'll start Tennessee. Yeah, I think it hurts because they were just starting to get on a roll on both sides of the ball, and I mean Derrick Henry's, if not the best running back, one of the best running backs. And yeah, there's a huge drop off from him to now Adrian Peterson / Jerry McNichols. Hopefully for them, Julio Jones can get back and be healthy. But honestly, just as someone who had Julio Jones in fantasy last year, so I know I had to keep up with his health, and he's already missed games this year due to injuries. Like I'm not confident in that. And yeah, so I think it's unfortunate because I don't think Tennessee's in that Super Bowl conversation anymore. But regardless, good win for them. They pulled it out, and we'll see. I think we'll see for the Ryan Tannehill doubters. We'll see what he's really made out of now that the offense is going to be put on his shoulders. But in regards to the Colts, John talked about the pick in the fourth quarter. It was a tie game, and then he ended up being a 7-point game, and then they managed to score again later to send it to overtime. But really, that's the one you're talking about, right? You're talking about that one, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The overtime pick was more egregious to me. I feel like the first. We talked live. I felt like the first one was not that egregious. The second one was egregious because he had Jonathan Taylor on an 8-yard curl, and I think he had another receiver about 4 or 5 yards, more towards the sideline, and he kind of locked in on the corner route that had been working for them early in the day, but once again, come on, Carson, these are NFL guys. Once you hit the corner route X amount of times, they're going to start covering the corner route. And it was you saw, I think it was 3 guys there. Tennessee was waiting for that. And yeah, I mean, that we mentioned it before, but it's kind of Carson Wentz's Achilles heel. What I think he was just such in the mode of, I got to be the hero. But then overtime happens. You don't need to be the hero now. It's a tie ball game. Just get us down the field. It's first down. We got to get a score. So hopefully you can clean that up. But yeah, like you mentioned with the Colts, they got an uphill battle now just to get into the playoffs. Not win the division unless Tennessee has to collapse, which, hey, could happen, but unlikely. You don't want to rely on that. The Colts should have ran away with this game early. They're up 14-0, but they kind of stalled out on offense and let Tennessee get back in this game. So hopefully they can learn from that and they can bounce back because I think that they're a fun team to watch regardless. Now going on to one of the shockers of the weekend, definitely for John and I think we may have jinxed it. But the New York Jets, they pull out a win over the Cincinnati Bengals 34-31. Mike White, had a good game. And the Jets defense had some key stops too, forced multiple field goals. But yeah, John, what are your thoughts in regards to what transpired in New York?
My first thought was what a wild 2 weeks for the Bengals. They came out and they beat the Ravens in pretty dominating fashion, and they choked this one to the Jets and Mike White, former Cowboy, by the way. But I don't know what the heck happened here. It felt like the Bengals for the most part were in control. And then all of a sudden, I think the Jets scored on their final 5 drives. I can't rationalize this in my head as to, their final 5 drives before they end the game, with the running clock out. I don't understand how the Bengals could do so well against a team like the Ravens, and then the Jets with all the things that are going on there, backup quarterback, even what's his face, Corey Davis, right? Corey Davis, Jets receiver,
yeah, he wasn't in.
Yeah, he didn't play. I don't know if I think they still have injuries along the offensive line as well. There's just, I don't know how this happened. I really can't give a good reason as to why this game happened, but that's the NFL. I think it's the one sport where on any given Sunday, somebody can come out and defeat anybody. There's no team that is unbeatable. There's no matchup that is not possible for a team to win because that's just how the sport is. That's how it goes. And good win for the Jets and Robert Saleh's crew.
Yeah. So in regards to the Jets, and it upsets me because they had a few more screenplays. I saw more screens called in this game than they do for Zach Wilson. And I understand you have to help the backup quarterback out, but you can help out the starting quarterback too. But anyways, yeah, interesting stat. Mike White had 405 yards passing, but according to Nick Urcolano, and it was also confirmed on PFF, Mike White's average depth of target, so the average, how far his receiver was when he threw the ball to them, was 4.2 yards. And so I guess Cincinnati just had a bad day, and I didn't get to watch this game fully, but were they not just tackling, wrapping up these, because these are checkdowns. That's because his leading receiver was Michael Carter, and his third leading receiver was Ty Johnson. So
39% of his passes went to running backs. 39%.
So, yeah, I'm not sure if that's a concern for Cincinnati going forward. Like John mentioned, it's just I'm not sure what to take fully from this game on that side of the ball. But yeah, it was just kind of a shocker. And then on the other side, I do give credit to the Jets defense. Didn't let Jamar Chase kill them like other teams have, like Baltimore has, kind of, and then force some turnovers. That Jets D line is still solid with Quinnen Williams and such down there, and obviously Robert Saleh, defensive head coach. So I don't have much else to like. It's just an odd game, and it's just like you mentioned. It's just that's the NFL. It's not like college where it's just Alabama and top 5 teams are running the show always, and they can turn the ball over a couple times to get away with it. It's the NFL. You make a few mistakes and you're losing to the Bengals, not the Bengals, the Jets. So it sucks for the Bengals because I still think that they're for real. It's just I think this is a letdown game after such a big win over the Ravens. So hopefully they can get back on track. But a team that did not fall to the letdown game was the LA Rams. They took care of business against the Houston Texans, 38-22. All 22 of those points were in the fourth quarter. So at one point it was just 38-0. Once again, I'm just gonna keep this short before I throw it to John. Matt Stafford doing great. His defense very well, and Houston, like we've kind of seen from the trade deadline, just in general, they're in a full rebuild, scrap, all that. So not much of a shocker to be there. But John, what are your comments, thoughts, / concerns in regards to this one?
Not a whole lot to say. Rams did what they do. They're dominant offensively. They're going to destroy a team like the Texans. And I guess good for the Texans on, bouncing back a little bit towards the end of the game. They're getting blown out for the most part and, got a few scores. I think the one thing that I was surprised about for the Texans is they traded Mark Ingram away, so you'd expect that Phillip Lindsay and David Johnson would get more involved. They combined for 5 carries. So I don't know what's happening in Houston. They suck, and everyone knows it.
It's just dysfunction. But also, quick note on the Rams. Obviously, they acquired Von Miller, and since not much happened in the trade deadline, we'll try to mention a few things. But yeah, obviously now this defense, pretty good, gets even better. Now, Leonard Floyd on one end, Von Miller on the other end, Aaron Donald in the middle, and Jalen Ramsey, and they have solid guys in the back end. And usually I'd be a little bit critical, but I mean the Rams, they make the most out of those late day picks. They get their Darius Williamses, or they find contributors at the end of the draft. So good on them, and I love what they do. I mean, I wish my Packers had an ounce of that aggressiveness, but they don't. So, but yeah, good.
They're the ultimate win now team. When they want to win, it because they trade those picks.
They're the guy that you hate in poker that they just keep going all in, and you don't wanna, because you don't want to risk it. But they're not afraid to call a high bet or something of the sort, just for poker terms. So good win for them, and obviously they get Von Miller, so they should be even scarier going forward. And now going to an AFC matchup, the New England Patriots beat the LA Chargers 27-24. Just another. Hey, at least Justin Herbert. Then they. What was the score last time? It was last year. It was like the Chargers scored, right?
45-0. I think
they skunked them. Okay, well,
I think so.
Regardless, better game from Justin Herbert overall, but
Yeah.
still not enough to win it. John, what were your thoughts in regards to this game?
I mean, it felt like the Patriots doing what they do. Mac Jones, he's perfectly built for this system. I think that's maybe why people are like most NFL offenses like don't necessarily want to like change what they do for like personnel. Like once it's sort of built, like that's what they want to stick with, and that's why they went out and got Mac Jones. They had to change dramatically for Cam Newton, and in the moment that they could, they got rid of him, got Mac Jones, and they went right back to what they did with Tom Brady. And so Mac, he's executing it. They didn't turn the ball over, rely on their defense and their run game. Mac hit the throws when he needed to. So they did good on that end, and ultimately it came up big for them because Damian Harris was able to have a good game, and then defensively they were able to pick off Justin Herbert twice. It just felt like there was some chaos that was happening on that offensive end, and the big downfall for it, I guess, was Mike Williams just really wasn't able to get anything going. Keenan Allen was still pretty solid. Justin Herbert, I wouldn't say had the worst game, but he did throw that pick six, which was pretty killer. And then also, I mean, like the running game, like it was okay, but it wasn't as good as like statistically it looks. Like Austin Eckler was solid, but then they had that one crazy 75-yard run by Justin Jackson. So I don't know. I feel like the Chargers they're not going to get a whole lot of like credit for this one, but they did good. Bill Belichick's still an amazing coach. They still have I think a better team than people think they are. So good win for the Patriots. For the Chargers, we just got to keep in mind that although people are anointing Justin Herbert as top 10, all these crazy things, this is still his second year in the league, still learning defenses and just getting used to how the NFL plays. So I think he still played a solid game and just got to clean up some of those decision making things against those elite defenses who are going to send a lot of pressure and try to get you confused on the front end.
Yeah. So in regards to Chargers, I would put a little bit more of the blame. I mean, still blame goes on Justin Herbert, but looking at the two picks, both ironically to Adrian Phillips, who apparently was a former Charger. First one, deflection right into Adrian's breadbasket, and the second one, and I'm not sure, but I don't fault Justin fully for it. It looked like there's just miscommunication between him and Jared Cook because that's who he was throwing to, and it was there. It was like right next to Jared Cook's like shoulder here, but Jared Cook turned the other way.
Yeah.
And then Adrian Phillips was right there once again, landing his breadbasket again. But regardless, for the most part, kind of similar to what I said about Joe Brady. It just seems like, ironically, Joe Lombardi, offensive coordinator for the Chargers, once again, it is New England, Bill Belichick, but they kind of had a beat, an idea, had a good feel for what they want to do in the passing game. And it's Bill Belichick, like John mentioned, so he can coach up a lot of, give him that time and he'll coach him up. So, yeah, we'll be interested to see if the Chargers finds more creative ways on offense to move the ball, especially in the passing game and in the run game, like John mentioned, because they were able to hold them down for the most part. Obviously, Herbert, still needs to learn and such. But in regards to New England, it's not as sexy as it was in the Brady days, but they don't care. They're here to win, play good defense. Right. Mac Jones. We're starting to see the reason, like John mentioned, why. Reliable thrower. Yeah, he doesn't have the running and the athleticism of a Cam Newton, but they can still have a run game without, with the running backs and their really good offensive line. And then Mac is a reliable enough passer that he can still manage the game, make it, and as we're seeing lately, make throws down the field too to, change the game a little bit more. So, I mean, good win for the Patriots. They needed it to stay once again in the race for the playoffs for the AFC. For the Chargers, that one really hurts because we'll see how. I don't think they've played. Have they played the Raiders?
But the Chargers,
I don't think so.
The
right?
Patriots. The Chargers beat them on Monday Night Football.
Okay, so they have one win over the Raiders. So I think the Raiders are 5-2. Going into their bye week. So they're only like a game behind. So still in that race. And obviously, we'll talk Kansas City later. But Kansas City's still in the back of the pack. But
technically, Kansas City's actually third now. They jumped
third.
Denver.
I forgot Denver. I forgot about Denver.
I wasn't 4-4.
4-4. Okay. Alrighty. So that is that. And then going to the next one, which should be quite simple. The Seattle Seahawks beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-7. I mean, Seattle's going to be in control for most of this game. And Geno Smith, veteran. I know he's not amazing. And, he has a bad rap for not working out in New York, but I think he kind of showed, like we're seeing, solid backup. You can win a few games, and maybe Seattle can stay alive until Russell Wilson gets back. John, what are your thoughts in regards to the Seahawks and Jags?
I can't get a read on either of these teams at all. I got this game totally wrong. I said to sit Tyler Lockett because Geno was not thrown to him the first two games. All of a sudden, Tyler goes off
Hey,
and gets.
maybe Seattle either saw your post or they already knew like we got to get him the ball more. So
Yeah, I mean,
hard to predict that.
I think he had like 75% of the passing yards. Like he went
He
crazy.
almost had a touchdown too. He got stopped at the 1 inch line, and then they
Yeah.
gave it to DK later.
Yeah, so and then I figure that Jacksonville, off a bye week might come ready to play, especially after they got their first win. But maybe I was just a little too confident in Urban Meyer with extra time on his hands. You never know what he was doing during that. So yeah, I can't really get a read on either of these teams. I didn't get to watch much of it. I did get to see a few highlights of it. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is still impressing me despite the terrible team around him. He's making, he's showing flashes, I think, of what people expected him to be. It's obviously, we'll see as he continues to learn, grow. Hopefully, the team improves around him too. Maybe we can, see more of that. But good win for Seattle. They dominated, I would say, on both sides of the ball, which is good for them because their defense, they're not very good. So getting, a game like that where they just dominated, that's got to be good for confidence, morale, and even moving forward, knowing like, hey, we are capable of doing this.
Yeah. So we'll see how if they can stay afloat without Russell Wilson a little while longer.
Which luckily they have a bye week this week, and then
Oh,
in week 10 he could come back. So
yeah, I think they play my Packers then. I think I read that report or something about that. But anyways, going to the aforementioned Denver Broncos, they took care of business and beat the Washington football team 17-10. Although this ending was wild because Melvin Gordon fumbled right after they got an interception that you thought was going to ice the game. Then Melvin Gordon fumbles and gives Washington the ball in Denver territory, but then Washington unable to punch it in and get that game winning or game tying touchdown to send it to overtime. John, what were your thoughts in regards to this wild game?
uh, this our friend Mitch is a Washington fan, and so we had a group that was watching the game with him, and it was pretty boring. So I switched back to red zone. It seemed like maybe things picked up a little bit later, in the second half, but overall, it was a really conservative game. Nothing really going for either side. Melvin Gordon still annoys me because he's doing good. Like I don't want to take anything away from Melvin. He's a very
Yeah,
talented player, but I think Javonte Williams, people are just really excited about him, myself included, and would love to see him continue to get more and more involved. And I think that Melvin, with he's only got 1 year left on this contract. I imagine he's not going to be staying in Denver. He's taken away from potentially seeing more of Javonte. So good on Melvin for like still producing because I once again don't want to take anything away from him. But on other than that, just not really impressed with anything else in this game. Washington's defense, at least, they had a solid performance. If they gave up 30 to Denver, that would have been really concerning. But at least they were able to, do all right in this one.
yeah, I will credit Jack Del Rio finding just being a little more creative defensively, a few more blitzes, a few more odd coverages and such to kind of help out that front four. He wasn't really doing that in the first few weeks. Seems to be doing it now, but it didn't matter because Denver still scored more points. Um, and yeah, this Denver team's getting healthier and healthier. So maybe I'm not really sure because they traded away Von Miller. So it's like,
I think
are they still trying to win, or are they just kind of just seeing how it goes? And hey, if we win without him, it's great. If not, then go ahead.
I'll be honest. I don't think they're trying to win. I can't like I have a lot of friends who are Broncos fans. One of my closest high school friends is a Broncos fan. Some of my coworkers are Broncos fans because they're from Colorado, and they're all incredibly mad about the move because Von Miller has sort of become one of those guys that it felt like he was going to retire there. I think of Troy Polamalu and Ray Lewis, guys who have like an extra meaning to like the team and the fans. Larry Fitzgerald, right? Like just players who, they had a lot of special moments. And even for Von Miller's case, he was a massive reason as to why they won that Super Bowl. And so I don't think they're trying to win. That being said, I think they got a great return for him because I don't think that they were going to be a playoff team even with him, unless maybe next year something crazy happened with like a quarterback trade or something. But with the current team they have talent, but I didn't expect them to be playoff teams. A good return, but getting rid of him, I think it's gonna make the fans mad, and we've even seen a lot of tweets from players on the team that are also not happy. So I can't imagine that losing a leader like Von Miller on that team. I think the signal they're sending to everybody in the organization, the fans, everything is we're not going to win. Like we're trying to accumulate assets and look towards the future.
Yeah, so we'll see how exactly it unfolds. It's just if you're doing that, I would think you would want to see what you have in Drew Lock. That's why I'm like confused because you spend a second round pick on him. He has intriguing talent. I would think that you at least throw him out there and see what you have before you maybe move on. But I
I
don't know.
think that's maybe where like the head coach and like the front office are, like colliding because the front office probably would love to just let Drew Lock get out there because, worst case, he loses you more football games, you get a higher draft pick. Best case, you see that he's got something special in him. But the coach, obviously, Vic Fangio, he's on the hot seat, so he wants to win games, and
Yeah.
so maybe he thinks that if we just be more conservative, then that's the best chance we have. So that's what I think is happening there. Because if you're the front office, you don't want to like tell Vic Fangio, "Hey, put Drew Lock out there." I don't. It would just be such an awkward thing to happen, especially if he's on the hot seat and he's potentially getting fired after the year anyway. I think it might accelerate that conversation.
So, anyways, good win for Denver and then for Washington. Hopefully, Antonio Gibson gets healthy over the bye week because and also Ryan Fitzpatrick should be back soon. So maybe that can be the spark they need to get their season back on track. Because, yeah, definitely expect them to be in the playoff conversation, and they are definitely not at 2-6.
Real quick, can we pause?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta charge my computer.
Alrighty, so now we're going to the last game of the afternoon. Probably the best game, and unlike you, I went left to go watch this game, which luckily it was worth my time. Although it didn't look like it at first because the New Orleans Saints with Trevor Siemian beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 36-27. Unfortunately for Jameis, was playing well, and then on a run, got pulled from behind and ended up tearing his ACL. But once again, story of the week. Credit Trevor Simeon and the Saints for hanging in there and beating the Bucs. I think at 1.2, the Bucs had taken the lead too, and then Simeon led a drive to retake the lead, and Brady threw some picks at the end to ice it. But yeah, John, what were your thoughts in regards to this wild one?
I was only getting to see the highlights through Red Zone because at some point I switched off, the Washington game. And first off, credit to Trevor Simeon. I think people do forget a little bit about him that he actually had a Pro Bowl invite like 4 years ago or something when he was on the Broncos. He declined it, and I think rightfully so because he really he didn't have the stats to back it up. You can Google it if you're interested in it. But regardless, like that just shows that Trevor Simeon has had moments in his career where he was, starting and was capable. And so good for him being ready, stepping up in the moment. It sucks that Jameis Winston got hurt and it looks like he's going to be out for the year as well. Torn ACL, MCL, the whole thing. So that really sucks for him, especially because it seemed like he was starting to get things going, was having success with New Orleans, and they're starting to figure things out. So that's a real bummer, especially this was his revenge game. People forget about that too. So good win for the Saints, and I'm starting to get a little bit more worried about Tampa Bay because unlike last year, they're having injuries, which is something that they didn't really experience last year. And then also, they're not looking amazing on the road. If we look at their road games, they lost to the Rams. They played a tight one in New England, only won by 2 points after the missed game-winning field goal in the rain. And now they lose to New Orleans after a really close one against Philadelphia. So on the road, they just really haven't been incredibly impressive. 2 close wins, then 2 losses. At home, they're still solid. But even then, like at home, the one, you know, great win I would say they had was against the Cowboys, and that was a close one where if the Cowboys just didn't miss field goals, they could have lost that one too. So I'm not saying that Tampa's not a Super Bowl contender or anything like that, but I think just this year because of the injuries, there are more holes than there were last year that teams are starting to exploit, and so we're going to have to see how they can address that later in the year. Maybe as they get guys back from injury, things will get cleaned up. But overall, good win for the Saints. For Tampa, I mean, it's tough when Tom Brady throws 4 touchdowns and you still lose, but I think that was the first time I heard in Tom's career that on the drive to win the game with like less than 2 minutes left, Tom Brady threw an interception to lose. I don't know if that's true, so don't quote me on that, but I think I heard that.
Did he do it with his last game against Tennessee, or was Tennessee already up by like a score
I,
or two? Because I remember
I
he threw.
think I think Tennessee might have been like up by like 2 scores or something like
Okay, I
that.
know they got a pick six on him, and then that was like game from there, or maybe not
Yeah.
pick, but yeah.
Anyway, maybe it was a pick six to lose the game or something
Okay,
like
because I think
that.
they just picked it and they iced it.
Yeah, maybe Tennessee just intercepted and iced it, and because this one it ended with a pick six, so maybe it was on the drive to win the game. First time Tom Brady's thrown a pick six. Regardless, the Saints, man, I think people need to put some respect on their defense. They look like they're for real.
Yeah, I was one of those that was disrespecting their defense, but I'm not really hitting the panic button on Tampa because I think we saw Saints are a very good team all around. They lost their quarterback. They didn't have technically their backup, which was Taysom Hill because he was out for a concussion, on their third string guy. But Tampa Bay couldn't really run the ball the way they typically do, and that's because Saints are one of the better run defenses. They have big guys and they can handle that big overpowering line. And then also they were able to, get into Tom Brady's face, and Tom wasn't really ever comfortable in the game. It felt like, but and then also credit this. I like to credit the Saints on the other side. I know the run game wasn't perfect, but they stayed patient with it, just to keep the Bucks honest. And Trevor Siemian / Sean Payton, I think really Sean Payton should get some more love. Putting Simeon in winning positions, staying ahead of the chains, and just managing the game. And also, once again with Jameis did that too. Jameis was looking pretty good as well. And yeah, just didn't make a game altering mistake, and especially at home. That helped too. So yeah, like John mentioned, I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, he was a question mark, but I think he's starting to become consistent. And then Paulson Adebo playing pretty well, and they have guys like I think PJ Williams, I think he was the one that had the pick six. He's playing pretty well, and obviously on the back end, I think Marcus Williams also. They got too
Yeah,
many Williams. Marcus Williams, Malcolm Jenkins, two really good safeties as well, and then Demario Davis, really good linebacker, and they usually find ways to coach up their other linebackers around him, and obviously like I mentioned, good D line too with Cam Jordan, Onyemata back. Marcus Davenport's finally starting to kind of pop a little bit. He's been dealing with injuries his first few years, so yeah, good win for the Saints and a crucial one because now they already had their bye week, but they're a game behind the Bucks because they're both Bucks 6-2, Saints 5-2. So we'll see how it looks with Taysom Hill going forward, though. And now to the Sunday nighter, your Dallas Cowboys came back to beat the Minnesota Vikings 20-16 with Cooper Rush and not Dak Prescott. Dak was ruled out prior to the game. But it looks like it didn't really matter because Cooper Rush came to save the day. So, John, I'll let you take the wheel here. What were your thoughts in regards to this one?
Uh, where do I start with this one? This was a wild game. My immediate thoughts after the game, all I could think about was, man, under Jason Garrett, and then probably even last year, like this is a game that we lose by 2 scores because there was just so many reasons to lose this game. First off, obviously, like you said, Dak does not play. Next, Tyron Smith gets injured in the game and does not return. And they instead of inserting La'el Collins, who just returned from a suspension, they inserted Ty Nsekhe, the swing tackle at left tackle. And so basically their top 2 tackles were not playing in this one. So that didn't help. They lost the turnover battle. They had double the penalties of the Vikings. including one that was a fourth down, the Vikings punt, and they stupidly go off sides to give the Vikings the ball back. There was just so many reasons for Dallas to lose this game, and they still somehow won. And I think in large part, I have to give a first off a massive amount of credit to the coaching staff for getting Cooper Rush ready, because although it started off a little rocky, it looked like he was ready for this game. They were well prepared. They had plays he was comfortable with, throws that he was comfortable making, and also they just kind of got creative in the ways they played this game. Cedric Wilson threw a crazy pass to CeeDee Lamb, which, by the way, Cedric Wilson, like, that was a perfect throw. Like, obviously, he's not going to have crazy accuracy, and CeeDee Lamb was wide open, but like the spiral on that ball, like, he used to play quarterback, I think, in college, so like that shows. But anyway, in this game, I think the key to why the Cowboys were able to win was their defense, which is crazy to think after what we saw last year out of the Dallas Cowboys. The Minnesota Vikings, they had 13 attempts at third down. One of those came on their first drive, in which they converted it. After that first drive, they went 0 for 12 on third down. They did not convert a single third down the rest of the game after the first drive. And I just want to read out how their drives went. So their opening drive, the Vikings get a touchdown, and every ensuing drive after, this is how it went: punt, field goal, halftime, punt, field goal, punt, field goal, downs. So they didn't get a touchdown the rest of the game. And it's just shocking, because it felt like this is, like, once again, we're having a lot of penalties. We're losing the turnover battle. Our starting quarterback isn't playing. The run game was okay, but it never really got going. There were so many reasons for us to lose this game. The defense came up big time. Randy Gregory was a force in this one. Micah Parsons was all over the place. And the secondary, I mean, I know a lot of people like to flame Anthony Brown and Trayvon Diggs because they give up yards, but in this one they held strong. Justin Jefferson was not really a factor. Dalvin Cook never got really anything going. And so massive shout out to Dan Quinn and that defense, because they are absolutely the heroes of this game, for being able to hold the Vikings to only 17 points and give the offense plenty of chances to do what they needed to do. So proud of my team for being able to overcome all of that stuff and still somehow win, because pretty much my entire life, that was a game that the Cowboys lose.
Yeah, I don't have much to say to add on. Like John mentioned, defense is getting better and better. And then, yeah, I mean, kind of like with the Saints, like with most of these other teams, except for the Jets, goes to show, like, it's more than the quarterback. Have good skill position, and not even just players, just coaching staff too, putting guys in winning positions, helping them out and such. And yeah, so go win for the Cowboys. For the Vikings, once again, I don't mean to make this team of the week, but just a kind of a backbreaker, because now they fall 3-4 and a stacked NFC. Packers are 7-1. So yeah, not looking too great in regards to making it to the playoffs if they want to. Well, I'm assuming they want to do that in their mission to make the playoffs. So, and unfortunately, trade deadline's passed, so they'll have to kind of dig in and I guess try to sneak in somehow. But anyways, that was
also just real quick, for anyone who says that Zeke is washed, go watch that third down that he converted, 3rd and 15, to set up the game-winning touchdown. Made 3 people miss and trucked another one for like a 19-yard gain. Shout out to him too.
Yeah. So yes, now that is it for the Sunday games, and now for the Monday nighter, Kansas City Chiefs beat out the New York Giants 20-17. Surprisingly, Chiefs defense was kind of here on this one. Mahomes was okay. It's just, I really don't. I don't know if they need to be more. I think they need more patient with the run game. They have a good offensive line, and I think they had that pick. It was the first two. Both teams started with a pick on their first drive. Kansas City got all the way, I think, into the red zone, right? And they got deflected up in the air because Payne had that wild reaction. But yeah, I really don't. I don't know what the issue fully is for the Chiefs. I listen to different podcasts and such, and they have kind of their own sayings. But I will say, at least their defense showed up this game. Granted, Giants O-line isn't. I think they still didn't have Andrew Thomas, and other than that, not many notable guys. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a game the Chiefs should have won, but in a way, it kind of feels like a loss. They should have beaten the Giants team by more. Granted, Giants had plenty of opportunities to win. As our good friend Rowan was very upset because they felt like they should have won that game, but unfortunately they didn't. Just like I said, last drive missed out. I think Dan Jones got sacked twice, right? Once by Frank Clark and once by Chris Jones.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. But I really don't have much else to say in regards to the Chiefs Giants, just because Giants are missing so many guys. But John, what do you have to add in regards to the Monday Nighter?
I don't really have much to say about the Giants. They did good. I think their defense recovered 3 fumbles, or maybe it wasn't their defense, just over in general their team recovered 3 fumbles. So that was good. Their defense recovered 1. There was the Travis Kelce one, and then offensively they fumbled twice and they picked up both. So good for them. But their defense, they forced some crucial turnovers and it kept them in the game. It's tough to see just what's happening to the Chiefs because they're not looking very good. And Mahomes leads the league in interceptions, but I can't entirely blame it on him because like half of if anyone watches the Chiefs games, Tyreek Hill has had multiple chances where the ball has hit him in the hands and it goes behind him and has been intercepted. That didn't happen in this game. It was very similar to I can't remember who it was. I think it was Josh Gordon, but basically hit him in the head and then got tipped back and somebody intercepted it. And it's like half of his interceptions are on teammates who are not catching the ball. And we saw that kind of in the Super Bowl. There was passes that Mahomes was making that people were not catching. And so I think offensively, it's obviously Mahomes needs to clean it up himself, but everybody just needs to be better. Like there's not really one specific culprit. Like Kelce, you can't fumble that. Tyreek, you got to be catching, these passes that are going your way. And just everyone overall has to be better. And so it's not like there's really one singular issue that is, plaguing this team. It's just sort of everything. I'm not out on the Chiefs because just with what they've been. I know that like on Instagram, there's been some crazy stuff where I think it was Damian. I can't remember his name. He's the linebacker. I feel bad because he used to play for the Cowboys too. I want to say Damian Williams, but that's the running back for Chicago.
Wilson,
anyway,
maybe?
Damian Wilson. Yeah, Damian Wilson. He commented somewhere on Instagram where people were freaking out about the Chiefs and saying that they're terrible and this is a terrible year and they suck now. They're all washed. And he was like, listen, guys, in the last 3 years, we've been to 3 AFC championships, 2 Super Bowls, and we won one of them. Like, calm down. And then Tyron Matthew responded to that saying that the Chiefs fan base was the most toxic fan base in football, which is not a smart thing to say. Also just not true. I don't know if you've met Cowboys fans, Eagles fans, just there's a lot of football teams.
Yeah, New York fans. No offense,
New York fans. Yeah, New York fans are rough. Patriots fans are rough. A lot of toxic fan bases out there. Anyway, not a smart thing to say about your own fan base. That was happening, and there's just a lot of stuff that's happening around the Chiefs. And once again, there's no singular issue that's really the problem right now. Everybody needs to be better. But I'm not going to count them out because of what they have done those 3 years. Like Damian Wilson said, to me, they have earned the right to never count them out until they are officially out. Like Mahomes has earned that. Tom Brady's earned that. Aaron Rodgers, all the greats, they earn that kind of respect of they're not out until it's over. And so with the Chiefs, I'm not panicking in the slightest. But I will say they got to be better because that is a game that they should have blew the Giants out, and it was way too close.
Yeah, just to create perspective. I mean, the Bucs were struggling. They were especially on offense. They were really struggling last year. Didn't take until their bye week in week 14. The last 3 weeks is when they really finally found their identity, caught their stride, got hot. The Chiefs kind of did a similar thing the year they won the Super Bowl. I mean, remember Mahomes, he was out for 3 weeks because of the knee in his knee. Took him a few weeks to get back in shape. That defense was pretty bad then too with Spagnuolo, and then the defense started figuring out, just ways to get stops. And then Mahomes got back into form, and it all fell into place. Yeah, we have just reached the halfway point of the season, of the regular season, that is. So, still a lot of football, and we're getting to the real nitty gritty months too. November, December, and I guess January now too. So, I'm not either, and they're still right in the thick of things, especially with the things that are going on I almost said Oakland with Las Vegas. They just I saw like a BR that like the random comments. I saw like who cursed the Raiders this season because they just off the field just not having a good season as Las Vegas. But maybe that's a part of being in Las Vegas. Anyway, regardless, that is the Week 8 reactions.